What's happening? I love side hustles, and my side hustle is YouTube. I've had a lot of others too. And I talk to people a lot about side hustles because there's everything from the very common, very popular driving for Uber to loan signing agent to personal trainer, whatever. And so there are just a ton out there. I love hearing about them because I'm always open to the idea of picking up another side hustle, something that maybe can scale. Those are the ones I like the most. But I talk and present on side hustles a lot too. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for people. So I love people having ambition, gumption, and the hustle to go out and do them. But generally, I think of side hustles falling on a spectrum. And that is just to help people think about, as they are considering side hustles, what might be the right side hustle for them. So I've always thought of the spectrum in two ways. And I realize, because I ran into someone who's telling me about their side hustle, and I think it is the worst side hustle I've ever heard of. So bad, in fact, that I think they should not do it. And so I'm going to tell you what it is, why I think it's bad, and it's actually made me rethink this spectrum of side hustles. I've always thought there's a spectrum of side hustles. On one end of the spectrum is time for money. And so it is really you do some work and you get paid for that work. Babysitting, perfect time for money side hustle. If you babysit 3 hours, you'll get paid for 3 hours. If you babysit 5 hours, you'll get paid for 5 hours. There's a lot of side hustles that fall in this realm. You have to put out the effort, the time, and the energy, and then you get comped for that. Now, the amount isn't really relevant, or the rate and the amounts can vary, but it's just that you won't get paid if you're not putting in the effort. One of the things that I think about is a bartender. So a friend of mine, she does bartending on the evenings and the weekends, and it's great, right? That is a time for money side hustle, despite the fact that you can make tips. So that's not really the relevant point. It's not relevant that she can make $10 an hour on a Wednesday night and $40 an hour on average on a Saturday night. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that you're trading that time for money. And thus, there's a limited amount of it. You can only work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So there's just a maximum amount of money you can make. Now, I'm not saying those aren't great, and those are most side hustles. Like I said, even driving for Uber, whether it's $14 an hour or whatever it is, and you've got to put in the hours to make the money. On the far end of that is the passive income types of side hustles. And those are great. They're the unicorn, the holy grail of it. If you own a property and you paid off the mortgage, that's passive income. What a great side hustle, collecting rents or whatever it might be without the effort. And so those things are, one, they're durable and reliable, regular income that you'll have. And it doesn't matter if you work or don't work. The money is created because of the business you've set up or the mechanism or the investment or whatever it is. It's not based on how much effort you're putting into it. Now, there are some in the middle that I call them scalable, but time for money. And those are interesting too. Say, like, to me, being a real estate agent, you can go out and you can sell and get comped when you buy or sell a home. And those can be better compensation numbers. But then you can also build a business while you're doing it, recruit some other agents, maybe train, do some educational events, whatever it might be. So there are some that kind of split the difference a little bit too. And that's why I call it the spectrum, because on one hand, I could just take a minimum wage job, just work for $9 an hour. That's fine. That's probably the lowest end of the side hustle spectrum you should be on. But on the high end, if you have an app, or you're a software developer, you build an app, those could be really great, scalable, passive income opportunities. Where I bring this up is because the worst side hustle I've ever heard about was being explained to me very excitedly by a nice lady. I have no problems with the enthusiasm on it, but she was selling basically a membership service to access her as a life coach. So instead of me telling you that, hey, if you want to connect, have a meeting, those types of things, have a consultation, call me and I'll bill you $100 an hour, $150 an hour, $10 an hour, whatever it is when you need it. She was basically saying, hey, make a one-time payment up front and you will have access to me for life. And so that one-time payment is much higher than the hourly rate for, say, a life coach or it doesn't matter to me what it is. I'm just giving you the specific example. But then the idea of that you're on the hook for infinity, or as long as at least you live or are capable of working, I don't care if it's a year or 2 years or 5 or 10 years or 20 years, right? That is terrible. Why it feels good is because you feel like when you get people signed up, you're getting some money in your hands, in your pocket right away, and maybe more money for no effort at that point. But what you're doing is you're selling the responsibility and the liability forever. It's the worst I've ever heard. And in fact, so much that I think you could easily end up, if you buy into this and subscribe and use this service and make a one-time payment for unlimited membership, she could be doing work for $1 an hour. And not $1 an hour right now, but $1 an hour 10, 15 years from now, where the cost of inflation has reduced that to 25 cents an hour. So it was just the worst. And so when I'm thinking about this spectrum of side hustles, time for money to passive income, this one falls way off the edge that I would never even counsel anyone to consider. And in fact, not only do I think it's a bad idea, I don't think you should do it versus any of the other ones that are maybe what people might say have more stigma or more demeaning. I would babysit over that because at least if I'm not making my money, if I am getting frustrated with the work, if people are abusing the service, I can just stop babysitting. I can just say I'm going to quit. But now you've sold them with a contract, presumably, for an indefinite amount of time. And so if you're going to say, hey, I'm out of this business or whatever, I feel like people could sue you, ask for the money back. But I tell you what, the catch-22 of this is you want people to see you as a value add, as a resource, and use you. If they're not, they're voting with their wallet and their feet saying, hey, I don't really find your wisdom valuable, so I'm not going to use it. You don't want that. You actually want them to use you. So it's like the worst. You want them to use you. You've charged them once. You'll never get paid again. And every time they use you, your per hour earnings are going to go down. Your effective hourly rate. Just terrible. It's the worst side hustle I've ever heard of. I don't know. Maybe there's a worse one. Maybe there's a side hustle out there where people do work and then they pay the person, their customer. Maybe that's worse. I've never heard of it. It might be like a Giffen good in economics. It's a theoretical good that doesn't exist. But this one, as it was being excitedly explained to me, I was just aghast thinking, okay, where's the blow-off valve? Where's the safety net on this one? Because it seems like you have capped upside and unlimited downside. Yeah, that's brutal. So anyway, as you're thinking about side hustles, business opportunities, whatever it might be, keep in mind how you're doing it. And the beauty of time for money is it's simple. It may not be glamorous. You may be capped on what you're earning, but you know what? You're not bound to some sort of responsibility much later either. It's worth it. That's it.